It should have been a routine traffic stop for this deputy, but unfortunately, it was anything but. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Deputy Johnny Martin. Viewer discretion is advised. There was nothing unusual about the morning of March 4th, 1988. It was fast approaching 3 a.m. The streets were quiet, the roads were empty, the lights inside all of the businesses and shops were all off. This particular morning just screamed routine for one particular Lee County, Virginia sheriff's deputy. But moments later, that would all shatter, and one man's life was lost forever. John Martin was born on August 8th, 1949 in Jonesville, Virginia. Unfortunately, I really can't find a lot about John's past or his upbringing. There's really very, very little information on him. I do know that to most people, he was known as Johnny. He was a 39-year-old father of 4 at the time of this case, and he was a 17-year veteran of the Lee County Sheriff's Department in Virginia. I looked through some messages on his obituary, and there were some pretty consistent things that he was described as. The consensus is that John was a very beloved member of the community. His family adored him. His kids loved him. The community respected him. He was described as just a great guy and, above all else, a true blue family man. One of his sons would write that his father was literally the best dad that any person could possibly ask for. As a sheriff's deputy, he was described as one of the good old boys, one of the actual genuine deputies and officers. He was labeled as incredibly honest and very by the book. He did not cut corners. He was also very caring and law-abiding. Go figure, for a sheriff's deputy to be law-abiding. This isn't Wisconsin, right? No, Manitowoc County? No, okay, no, we're in Virginia, so we're good. John never took advantage of the power he held. He never discriminated against anyone. He treated every single person fairly. But sadly, in the dark and early morning hours of November 4th, 1988, his end of watch would come. Deputy Martin was just doing his typical rounds. He was driving around the area. It was about 2:45 a.m. He usually worked, that early shift, so this was something he was just accustomed to. Then at 2:58 a.m., John will radio his dispatch. He wanted to let them know about a mysterious vehicle that was parked just behind a local clinic. It was the Western Lee County Health Clinic, and no one else was parked there. It was just this one particular car, and it had its headlights on, and there appeared to be just one person, driving, and in the car itself. John told dispatch, "I'm going to approach the vehicle just to see what's going on." As John approached this vehicle in his own car, the other vehicle then began to slowly, casually drive away, as just to indicate oh, sorry, I was just parked here for a second, and here I go. But John felt something was off, so he turned on his lights, and about halfway down the driveway of the clinic, the car pulled over. Before getting out of his police car, John would radio dispatch one more time. He said that this car was a large, light brown, possibly tan vehicle. Keep in mind, it's super dark out, not a lot of lights in the area, so he's kind of just guessing about what the car looked like from where he was. He told dispatch, from his car, it looked like it may have been a Cadillac, but he wasn't sure. The license plate appeared to be one of those taped on license plates on the back window, so it wasn't in its traditional location. So it appeared that this may have been a recently purchased car that was still awaiting its official plate. But after that, dispatch would never hear from Deputy John Martin again. Several moments later, dispatch would try to radio John, but he didn't respond. They waited another few more moments, radio him again, Nothing. So at this point, they are feeling concerned because it's pretty much protocol for them, to have heard back from, the deputy with regards to the situation, but they never did. So they radioed another officer that was in the area. This officer was about 7 miles away, and this was Deputy Doug Parsons. So Deputy Parsons then gets to the area. He sees John's patrol car just kind of sitting there. And then as he gets closer, he sees John himself lying in the road, face up. So he immediately runs to John to see what happened, and there was blood. And John said to him, "I've been shot and I'm hurt bad." So Parsons races to his patrol car and he radios for an ambulance immediately. Doug Parsons was a nervous wreck at this point because he and John were actually really good friends. They had been working together for years. So this was just a very troubling sight to see. But Deputy Parsons knew he still had to keep his composure. This is a crime scene, and he needs to make sure it's a secured crime scene. And he also needs to make sure he gets information out of John about what happened and who did this. So John, again, is still alert, and he is able to answer questions. He said that the guy who did this shot at him probably at least 3 times. He felt like he was hit 3 times, but doesn't know if there was any more. He said that the driver shot him, and it was a white male in his mid-20s. He had what he thought was like dark, maybe black or dark brown hair. He had a thin mustache. He relayed again that the license plate wasn't actually a plate. It was one of those dealer tags taped onto the back window, but he did not remember or get a good enough look at the number itself. So he did say that the sticker did say that it was the Land of Lincoln, which they knew meant it was a car probably from Illinois. He then says, again, it's super dark. He did not get the greatest look because of the lighting, but he thinks it was a large Buick, possibly between the years of 1970, 1980-ish. And it was light brown, maybe tan. Again, he was in such a state of shock at this point. He's just trying to recall as best as he can, but he's not positive that that's the true description of the car. John does say that he was able to take out his service weapon, and he fired the whole thing, all 6 of his shots at the car. He said he does not know if he made contact all 6 times, but he can say for sure that he did see one bullet hit the side, one of the side doors, but he doesn't know if he hit anything else. Parsons was able to take the service weapon and look and confirm that, yep, he had fired all 6 shots. The ambulance finally got there, and John was rushed to the nearest hospital, which was 22 miles away. Jesus. The emergency, surgeons were able to take out a bullet. It was a .44 caliber bullet from John. They didn't find any other bullets. There was also no other bullets at the crime scene that they found. So they probably just passed through him and went somewhere, they don't know where. They did confirm that John was shot 3 times, and unfortunately, despite all of their best efforts, John would lapse into a coma, and then 3 days later, he passed away. John was laid to rest with full honors, and hundreds of residences of the area, of police officers and sheriff's deputies from all different counties, different states, they all came to pay respect to this guy, because he was, again, very well known and very renowned for his, just respect in the community and his all-around just good guyness that everyone just loved about him. So they just needed to catch the man who did this to him. During the beginning stages of the investigation, police would put out kind of like generic composite drawings based on how John had described him to, Deputy Parsons. And this actually got a hit pretty quickly. They were able to get a tip about a certain individual. They brought that individual in for questioning. They investigated them thoroughly, checked their alibi. And this was not the person who killed Deputy Martin. He was cleared of any wrongdoing. Pretty quickly, though, this case just sort of hit a roadblock. It hit a dead end. Like, they They didn't really have a lot to go on. They only had the description John provided, but again, he was in a state of shock. The car description, they don't know if that was truly accurate. So they just were at a lost cause. So what they did was the Lee County Sheriff's Department, they actually reached out to the showrunners of Unsolved Mysteries. Unsolved Mysteries was able to quickly put together a segment that would not air until January 18th, 1989. But by the time it aired, there were some leads now being looked at by the Sheriff's Department. On December 27th, 1988, a man by the name of Floyd Barlow, he owned his own security business, so he installing security systems in people's homes, that kind of thing. Well, on that December 27th, he was on a job in Effingham, Illinois, and this was at the house of the family known as the Mills. He was there to repair their burglary system, but also to install smoke detectors. When Floyd was down in the basement, just kind of working on some wiring and whatnot, he came across a box of .44 caliber bullets with some missing. There was also, with the bullets, was a ski mask and a bag from a bank in Middlesboro, Kentucky. And also, there was a dealer's tag to a vehicle that was from Illinois. He was like, oh, this is kind of an unusual little grouping of items, but, I'm here to install security systems. So he then went to another bedroom in the house, and this happened to be the room of 24-year-old David Wayne Mills. Oh, no. All three names, that's not a good sign for David. And Wayne as your middle name? Ugh. In that bedroom, Floyd noticed a .38 caliber handgun was just sort of out in the open. So Floyd, feeling just a tad concerned about all of these items, he would tell his local police, the Effingham, Illinois police. Once they knew all the evidence, they were like, well, just a couple of months ago, a deputy was killed. The killer hasn't been found, was shot with .44 caliber bullets, probably was shot in the middle of catching someone doing a robbery, ski mask, okay? They didn't want to leave any stone unturned, so what they did is they got in touch with the Lee County, Virginia Sheriff's Department. They relayed this information. So then the Lee County Sheriff's Department sent a couple of investigators to Effingham, Illinois to look further into this. They very quickly learned that on November 5th, 1988, the day after the murder took place, the Effingham Police Department had impounded a vehicle. It was completely stripped, and it was a burnt out to almost where it was just a shell. And this car had bullet holes in it. Specifically, it had 3 bullet holes and then 1 ricochet mark towards the trunk. On the car was no license plate or dealer tags or anything, but the dealer tag that was found in the room of David Wayne Mills was the tag that belonged to this vehicle. They were able to investigate and piece it together that this car, which was actually a 1985 Mercury Cougar, had been stolen off of a dealership lot there in Effingham recently. Investigators also learned that David Mills was in Lee County, Virginia on November 4th because he had family there and he was visiting them, and they confirmed, yeah, he was here. They also found another gun in the Mills home, and when they tested that gun, they did ballistic testing on it. This gun, which was found in Mills' house, was the gun that killed Deputy John Martin. So, David Mills was placed under arrest and brought in for questioning. When questioned, David said, okay, I stole this car off of a dealership lot, and then I drove it to Lee County, Virginia, and I, along the way, picked up a friend of mine, and this friend was from Middlesboro, Kentucky, okay, and his name was Jerry Wayne Houston. Son of a bitch, Wayne, again? Anyway, David said that the two of them had then drove to the clinic in Lee County with the intent on robbing it. And then that's when he said, that's when the deputy kind of pulled up. We tried to drive away casually, and he said he was driving, but then the cop pulled us over. And so when this deputy approached the car, my buddy in the passenger seat, Jerry Houston, he just pulled out a gun and he shot the guy a couple of times. And then I'm like, oh shit. And then I sped off. And then they would buy gasoline and they would burn the car to a crisp and make sure there was nothing left inside. What they didn't realize was that you're not going to burn away the bullet holes. So David Mills is then extradited back to Virginia. And he is charged at that time with first-degree murder. They would then later up the charge or add the charge of capital murder because they were looking to get the death sentence because, he did kill an officer. They did track down the friend, Jerry Houston, because he had been arrested and he was in jail for a completely unrelated burglary. But they questioned him for hours and hours. They investigated all aspects of his life, his, whereabouts and all that. They had no evidence to suggest that he had any involvement in this murder and that he was likely just thrown under the bus by his so-called friend and was trying to be framed for murder. Because if you remember, back to when, John Martin was relaying the information to, Deputy Parsons, he only ever mentioned there was one person, that it was the driver who shot at him. There was no passenger who shot at him. He didn't make any mention of them. Is it possible he just didn't see him or just didn't recall? Sure. But he was up at the door, so he would have noticed a passenger, and he would have certainly noticed the passenger was the one who reached across and fired the gun. So Jerry Houston was cleared of any connections to the murder, and he wasn't charged with anything to do with it. David Mills described the murder to a T. So if it's not Jerry Houston who committed this murder, it's obviously the one guy who described the entire crime perfectly. All evidence, all statements, the entire investigation led solely to David Wayne Mills being the only person who was in that car, and he was the only person responsible for murdering Deputy Martin. Simply put, he was trying to rob the clinic. He got caught. He got busted, and he just couldn't have any witnesses to show that he was in the area because he was also in a stolen car. And he couldn't have the officer find that out. So I guess his only answer, instead of just like speeding off and hoping he can, dodge the cop, he just shot him and killed him. Yeah. A loving, caring father of four just gunned him down so that he wouldn't get caught. So he would go on trial and he would still claim his innocence and he would still vomit out the same story that it was his friend who did it. But Jerry Houston would take the stand and he would testify against David. And then another friend of David's came forward to say, yeah, David told me about the murder. He said he did it. Jesus Christ, I swear, these people always tell on themselves. They can't help but always tell at least one person the horrible thing they did. I just wish more of these friends who get these confessions would come forward to solve cases more, The jury, of course, did not believe David's story, and the prosecution did prove its case and beyond a reasonable doubt. So the jury came back, and David Wayne Mills was found guilty of first-degree murder of Deputy John Martin. They did not come to a unanimous decision when it came to convicting him of capital murder, which would again end in the death penalty. But still, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder. And then they tacked on an extra 15 years that he can serve in hell for the robbery or attempted robbery. So in this case, justice was served, and it was served relatively swiftly. So yay. But that is all for this case today. I hope you found it interesting. If you want to see more cases from me, I of course have a whole plethora of cases now here on YouTube, long ones and short ones. I also have a whole bunch of videos over on my TikTok page that I've just made over the past, God knows how long, past almost 2 years, I guess. So tons and tons of videos over there. I'm not posting any new true crime content on that platform. It's all over here, but you can still go over there and follow me and see a bunch more stories. Secondly, if you have a case you would like me to cover, please email me at makingatruecrimerer.com, and you can send me just the name, the location where it happened, and when it happened, if you know. And then I can add it to my list. But before you do, go to my link tree below, check my Crimerer case list, and just make sure the name that you want me to cover isn't already on there. If you see it there, please don't email me yet again. It's on there. I pick my cases at random, so just, yeah. I am all caught up on my emails, so if for some reason at this point I have not responded to you, because I respond to everyone, please send it to me again. It may have gone to my spam folder, but that clears itself out every once in a while. So yeah, please just email me again. And lastly, if you would like to support me in any way, we do sell merch. I sell t-shirts and hoodies, mugs, a wine glass, that's all just like with my logo and name and stuff on it, and a couple other sayings. We do ship internationally, so Adam, who makes my merch himself, he will ship it to wherever you are in the world. He does ship pretty quickly, usually. International, maybe a different story, and it's also going to be, the shipping fees a lot higher, unfortunately, but yeah, he'll do it, so all right. All right, True Crime Maroonies, that is it for this case. So I will see ya for the next one.